Well, hello everybody. I am your host, Josh the Archon, and I am so pleased to see everybody here today. Everybody in the chat, thank you for coming on through and actually stopping by and wanting to see this episode that's coming up on the Atheist Enlightenment. Before we start, I just really want to say thank you to our Patreon supporters. Thank you to Linear. Thank you to TART, or the Atheist Roundtable, to Laura Magee, and to Mikey Famine for helping me do what I'm doing and helping me provide the actual information that you need in order to, that you need to hear, in a sense. So without further ado, today's episode is actually based on Roe v versus Wade being overturned. And we're really going to get into the intricacies of that and how, what is in store for the future. So without further ado, I have two amazing guests that are with me today that I'm happy to have. The first one, you have seen them before, and I would like to enter in Bryce onto the stage. Bryce, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. I don't know how special of a guest that I am, but I try.
Very special, my friend. Very special indeed. That's for sure. And I would love to ask another person onto the stage, a very special friend as well. I would like to add Shannon onto the stage. Shannon, welcome to the Atheist Enlightenment.
Hi there. I'm doing all right tonight. Yeah. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm really happy to have this type of conversation, though, because I think we really need to actually delve into this. I think this is something that is a necessity to delve into. And if we don't, then people are not necessarily going to have that information and know how to move forward from there. So this is something that I think that we really need to discuss. But before we continue, Bryce, would you like to introduce the audience to yourself?
Sure. I mean, for those, the funny thing about us on your platform is I'm sure that 99.9% of your audience already knows who I am. But for that 0.1% who doesn't, I am Bryce Aroni. I have appeared on the Atheist Roundtable, the Atheist Network Group, and also a Skeptic Haven as a host for Secular Soapbox, formerly owned by Josh the Archon. So I was recruited by a bunch of different people to just kind of offer my voice into the realm of secular humanism and the atheist community. But other than that, I'm just a guy. I am a college student. I'm going to hold on to that title until I graduate. So I've been a college student for a long time, but I'm currently university student right now. Another couple months.
No worries. Likewise with me too. It's perfectly university student for a long time as well. So no worries about
that. I claim no credentials on anything. So no specific expertise here. I'm just a guy.
Absolutely. And Shannon, would you like to introduce yourself to the panel? To the to our audience. Viewers, please and thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on. Good to see you and talk with you again. I'm Shannon. On Twitter, I'm Nullifidian Mom. I'm a mom of 3, and I'm a registered nurse. I'm not currently practicing in at bedside care, but I have a background in I'm a certified pediatric nurse, and I also have a background in maternity nursing. Currently, I homeschool my kids, and I'm an activist. I'm the communication director for Women's Voices of Southwest Florida.
Okay. And with this group, does this group sort of like, what is the purpose of the group in general, just so that the viewers can understand?
So we came together almost exactly a year ago. I live in Manatee County, Florida, and the Board of Commissioners in Manatee County is very conservative. And there's a pastor who was a brand new commissioner, and he he proposed a 6-week abortion ban in Manatee County, where we have no abortion clinics. He wanted to model after the Texas 6-week abortion ban. He wanted to make us a sanctuary county for the unborn, modeling it after Lubbock, Texas, and some other cities in Texas who were sanctuary cities for the unborn. It was so it riled a lot of us up, and we came together pretty much on Facebook, and Women's Voices of Southwest Florida was born, founded by Danny Key Sametz and Sarah Parker. And so we've been demonstrating and doing activist work ever since then. It's expanded across Florida and also in Washington, D.C. as well, based on Florida implementing a 15-week abortion ban that thankfully has been struck down by Florida courts, and then also with the overturning of Roe V Wade. So we're not just working in Manatee County, we're kind of all over now.
Right. And actually, I'm really happy to hear that, because I think that what your organization does, or the organization that you work with does, is really important for women's rights to begin with, and to give to give voice to those rights, in a sense, and to kind of fight for the rights that individuals, sadly now from the overturning of Roe versus Wade, are now kind of empty-handed towards a certain extent. Because if we look at what's going on in mostly well, I don't want to overgeneralize, but I mean, within the South, we can kind of understand that there will be certain states that are going to overturn the abortion law, or shorten it to such an extent that is almost it's not logical, in a sense, to do so, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's already happened. There were several states that had trigger laws, where the old abortion laws that were there before Roe v. Wade but never got taken off the books just went into effect that day, the day that Roe v. Wade was overturned. And then also like states like Texas that had a new abortion ban that, I mean, that's been allowed to stand since last September. And there's many states, my state of Florida including, that is trying to do everything in their power to try to ban abortion. I'm honestly, ultimately, the goal of the pro-life movement is to ban abortion across the United States at the federal level. They're not being quiet about it. It's not like they're hiding it. That is what they want. So this election, and I'd say the next coming elections, are very, very important to stop what's going on now in its tracks and turn things back around so that we get our rights back. 167 million people lost our rights the day that Roe versus Wade was overturned. And we know that that's not where they want to stop. There's enough politicians out there that they're talking about they want to overturn Obergefell. There's, I mean, I know it sounds extreme, but Brown versus Board of Education is on the line. Loving's on the line. So many people's rights are on the line right now. We're regressing. We're going backward to an America. We're not at the America where we want to be at yet, and we're just turning around and going backward rather than progressing forward. It's very disappointing, and it can be it's been hard. It's been hard grappling with it, mentally and emotionally, but there are things we can do. I mean, there are things we can do to try to mitigate the damage now and try to push for, let's say, codifying Roe v. Wade in legislation, and hopefully further than that. So all is not lost, as long as we are the people, and this is not what the people want. So all is not lost, and we do have to remember that.
I would completely agree with that. I think that even though this is, I guess we can say, a daunting time, it is not something that automatically means that there can't be something better in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, we might not know what is to come next, and as you stated, with all those other examples that are being looked at by the Supreme Court, and they're even wanting to strike those down, right? Is very, I find it terrifying. But at the same time, these individuals aren't in office for, well, they're in office until whatever happens. But at the end of that, right, they're not there for eternity. They're only there for a specific amount of time, and then hopefully new people will be put forward into the Supreme Court, and they can overturn these regressive laws that have been put forth.
That's one of my problems.
I mean, I'm hoping before then, because a lot of these Supreme Court justices that have been appointed are pretty young, and they're planning to be there for a long time. Right, exactly right. So hopefully this is mobilizing people to get their asses to the polls and voting these people out who are trying to take away our rights.
And if I could just say, Josh, because we touched on this the last time I was on your show. I hope my audio is coming in clearly, by the way. Linear was saying that I was cutting in and out, but hopefully you guys can hear me okay. We touched on it on the last time that I was on your show about how the Supreme Court it's the one branch of the government that's not elected. Right. These are people who we didn't elect these people, and they're there. It's a lifetime appointment. And so, yeah, they're not there forever, but they can do a lot of damage in a lifetime. It's not like we get to vote them out during the next election, like the president or the people in Congress. So this is the devastating part about having someone like Donald Trump, who was in office specifically campaigning to do that, to put in Supreme Court justices that would overturn Roe v. Wade. Shannon is absolutely right that this is not a secret, that they've been trying to do this for years. We've known about this for years and years and years. This has been the platform of the Republican Party, that they've wanted to overturn Roe v. Wade, that they've wanted to ban abortion, and they're doing it. So if anyone was caught by surprise here, they weren't paying attention. They haven't been paying attention for the last 5, 6, 7 years.
I completely agree. But I think the issue, and also, Bryce, just one thing, because it is true, it's still hard to hear you, my friend. So
I'm going to back out and then come back in.
Sure, absolutely. So I completely agree with what Bryce stated. It's completely true. If people were caught off guard, they weren't paying attention, and they didn't see the signs, because the signs were clear to see. However, I think that with certain people, right, they believed that these rights were quote unquote fundamental, that these rights that were given wouldn't be changed, because how would you think within the 21st century, right, that somebody would be thinking about striking down these particular laws in the first place? So I think the reality of the issue was that people were caught off guard because they did not understand that those laws could be overturned. And they thought that they would just be perpetually there. And I think towards a certain extent, how could I state it? It was ignorance, in a sense, sadly.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't believe that, like, even with myself, even seeing Donald Trump up there, I didn't even think that would be possible for people to strike down or amend the law that was actually amended prior to, in order to actually give people freedoms and rights. And I never thought that would actually be turned back. Welcome back, Bryce. Welcome back, my friend.
Test. Microphone check. Microphone check.
Oh, it sounds better now.
All right. Let's hope that's a trend that continues.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful sound. Okay. So what I was stating before you got on was that I completely agree with you. I think that I think that it was ignorance that took over because they were so blinded by the laws that were there, right? And they thought that those laws would be staying there forever in a sense, right? Because you wouldn't necessarily think that somebody would be able to overturn those in the 21st century. Though I do understand, and I think I know what you were going to say, is that, well, as soon as Donald Trump came into office, that whole entire scenario changed. And I think that is the reality of the situation.
I think some people just got complacent. A lot of people on the left, and I'm talking liberals and progressives, they got really complacent and they didn't, they didn't take action when action needed to be taken. There's a lot of people on the right who are happy about this outcome. Like they wanted it to go in this direction. Anyone that's wearing a MAGA hat, that's what they want. Make America great again. That's a euphemism for turn back time and let's go back to a period where people didn't have rights, right? That's what make America great again implies, that America's not great now. It used to be great. So we need to go back and make it like it was, which is when these things were illegal. So they've been very open about that. The people on the left have just been kind of, we have Roe V Wade, Supreme Court precedent, that's there. We don't have to worry much about this, but we really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree. Oh, Shannon, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say one thing that is at least somewhat encouraging to me, specifically, I guess, about Roe v. Wade, is that there are at least some MAGA people who I think also didn't want to see Roe v. Wade be overturned and just went along with Donald Trump because they like the other crap that he said and just didn't really think it would happen, who are mad now. I'm in Florida. There's a lot of them here. One of our Republican Board of Commissioners, commissioner on the Board of Commissioners, she said she went to a Tea Party meeting, like the Tea Party. I mean, they're pretty extreme. And she had a woman come up to her and said, this ban cannot happen here in Manatee County, when we were talking about the Manatee County ban. Mm-hmm. I know a number of people who at least have the family members who voted for Trump, and they're mad too. So I'm hoping that there unfortunately are people who are very supportive and very happy about it, but I'm hoping that maybe actually seeing that this happened is a wake-up call to even those people who thought, oh, this whole Make America Great Again idyllic idea that they had is gonna bring us backward into some dark times. If they're realizing that, like they really
this affects me
can
too.
Take women's rights away.
Yeah. It has to adversely affect them as well before they see like that this was maybe a bad idea. Maybe I'm on the wrong team here.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that does that.
I completely agree. Shannon, before we continue, Linear stated that the volume might be too high on your end. So if it's okay, if you can lower it just a tad.
Okay, I'm not very technologically advanced, so I just need to turn my volume down. Like,
I believe so. I believe maybe, or somehow.
If you go
is
to,
that better?
If
is
you
that
go
better,
to
or should
settings,
I talk quieter?
It sounds the same to me, but if you want to adjust if you want to adjust your audio, you just click the settings sprocket at the bottom.
Thank you.
And then click audio, and then there's a slider at the bottom that says mic volume, and you can adjust it manually that way.
Oh, look at that! Thank you. Yeah, I'm so not. Okay, so okay.
That sounds great to me.
So I went to audio, and I see default, and there's speakerphone, headset, earpiece. So no.
Oh no. Okay. Oh.
No. Automatically. Oh, it says automatically adjust mic volume. Okay. Better?
Just a little bit louder.
Okay. We'll go up just a little bit louder. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
That sounds perfect to me.
Okay. Sorry
All
about
right.
that.
Oh,
Thanks
no
for being
worries.
patient with me. I'm still very new to this, all of these webcasts.
No, it's perfectly fine. It's fine. It's fine. Um,
I have a couple of ideas about what could be done, but I'm curious as to what you think, what you guys think, because I don't want to overstep. Like my ideas might be considered too radical, too far to the left, because I'm a democratic socialist. So, you know, a lot of people probably haven't considered my ideas that would absolutely work to protect women's rights. But how many people are going to go for it?
yeah, because
Let's hear it.
Well, so okay, Roe v. Wade, Supreme Court overturned it. The first problem I already talked about is with the Supreme Court. They have 3 justices on there who were appointed by Donald Trump, a guy who lost the popular election, right? So the majority of Americans didn't ask for these 3 justices. The majority of Americans, as Shannon pointed out, were in favor of Roe v. Wade, wanted the right of women to choose, right? I think it's something like 65% support Roe v. Wade of Americans. So you've got these Supreme Court justices that just overturn that, denying the will of the American people. They weren't put there by the American people. They were put there by a guy who lost the popular vote. So that's the problem. The problem is the Supreme Court right now. The first solution is to expand the court and even the balance to progressive justices. President Biden hasn't fought for that, but he could. You know, Democrats could do that. They have a majority in both houses. Why aren't they doing it? But that's one obvious solution. Put in new justices to protect some of these laws. They could also be introducing legislation. Oh, by the way, President Biden's the president. He has executive power. He could do executive orders to allow federal installations on, in all these states that have overturned Roe v. Wade and have abortion ban laws. Well, there's federal land there. He could be, providing abortion services on this federal land, but he hasn't done that. So, there's a lot of things that could be done right now with the people in power. They're just choosing not to exercise their power. So I think the voters need to pay attention to what your politicians are doing and what they're not doing, and consider whether or not they should be your politicians.
I completely agree with you. I think that's the first step, right? But even if, let's just say, right, you allow more members, or you put more members into the Supreme Court, you're still needing to deal with the term that the individual needs to stay in the Supreme Court.
I'm sorry, Josh. That was just the first step. That was just addressing the court. If you would like me to go on, there's a way to fix that too. And again, introduce legislation to have term limits on the Supreme Court. These people should not be in there for a lifetime. They should serve 4 years, 6 years, whatever they decide is the appropriate length of time for a Supreme Court justice, but it shouldn't be a lifetime appointment. So term limits on the SCOTUS, just like you have on the presidency, just like you have on the Senate and in the Congress. It's the only branch of government without term limits. It's the only branch of government where we don't elect these people. There's a problem there, right? So,
Agreed.
Yeah, you can do both things.
Shannon, how do you feel about this?
Okay, I'm also a progressive. I would classify myself as a democratic socialist as well. However, it's not so much that I disagree that those are good solutions. I think I don't think they're as cut and dry and easy as you make it out to be, though.
Oh, they're not easy. No, they're not easy at all.
Right. Well, you're saying like you
simple.
do it right now, and I don't think that in the last couple of weeks since Roe was overturned that Biden could automatically have abortion services on federal installations at this moment. Could he be pushing toward that? Yes. Should we have more Democratic politicians and hopefully even honestly some moderate Republican politicians pushing for that? Yes. Because not all Republicans are anti-abortion. A lot aren't. So I do think that would be a really good move in the right direction. Exactly, I don't know all of the exact locations of where these federal installations are. I know we have I think every state has some federal land. It could still be problematic for people trying to actually physically get to the abortion services, but it's better than nothing. I am in favor of expanding the court. I do agree with you there. I do wish that Biden would be pushing for that. I don't love it, only because I really hate that this whole thing has come down to a game, basically, of which side can play the dirtiest and win. Because I don't feel like that's true justice and truly a democratic way of moving forward. But I feel like it's like, if our hands are tied, what else can we do but beat them at their own game, when it's human rights that are in jeopardy? So I would like to see that done. Yes, I agree with you there. What we personally can do right now, as citizens, is be contacting our legislators. I mean, I know mine ignore me. I've got Marco Rubio and Rick Scott and Vern Buchanan and Governor Ron DeSantis. So I know they ignore me, but I can still pester them. And I mean, like I said, I was saying, I really hope that what's happened will mobilize people to get out to the polls. But I think we really need to be pushing people to get out and vote. I think that we need to be pushing our fellow progressives to vote for the best candidate we can get. It's not always going to be the best candidate. It's not always going to be the person we want. I think we could push for reform in how our elections are handled. And I'm a big fan of ranked voting myself, but we're not there yet. We're not right there. So we got to work within the system that we currently have. Yes, we need to get more progressive candidates pushed to be able to actually have a chance at winning. But right now, I think that we need to push for whoever we can that's making promises that they are going to codify Roe v. Wade, or actually just codify the right to an abortion. It's not, and privacy. I feel like they're two separate issues in some way, but obviously they're intertwined. That's what Roe v. Wade is about. And we need to make sure that people, our fellow progressives, aren't going to be sitting out on voting if the candidate that's there and is the most likely to win isn't the one they wanted, isn't the perfect, idealistic, progressive candidate. I don't love that. There's definitely times when I'm checking boxes like, you know, like, this is my choice. These are my choices, but we know one of the two is going to win. You know what I mean? And so I mean,
you have, Josh, a question in the chat. I don't know if you've noticed that, but and I kind of want to answer it. Logical, plausible, probable.
Sure.
How is pushing for the federal government overriding state laws democracy? That is incoherent. It's actually not, because what we have right now is not a democracy. We haven't had a democracy. We've never had a democracy in this country, but we definitely don't have one now. When you have a situation where you have a court composed of 9 justices where 6 people have decided the rights of 300 million and have affected over 150 million, that's not a democracy, because none of these people were elected. They were appointed by a guy who lost the popular vote. So again, you have losers who are in charge deciding the fate of hundreds of millions of people. How the hell is that a democracy? I didn't want to use the F word there, but we don't have a democracy.
Fine.
Right
You can
now.
do so. You can do
That's
so.
the problem. Logical, plausible, probable. There is no democracy. What we're trying to do is make it so that it actually is a democracy, so that the laws in this country are reflective of the will of the American people. That's democracy.
Yeah, and to expand on that, I would also ask, how are incredibly unpopular laws that are not supported by the majority of the people in these states democracy?
Yeah.
It's
That's
not.
the other thing.
These aren't laws that were voted on by people. These are laws. Some of them are laws that are old from like the 1930s that were just on the books and just immediately got implemented, and people are going to die due to those laws. I don't see how having people die is democracy. I don't see how putting women in prison for having an abortion and then revoking their right to vote because now they're a felon is democracy either.
And the other part of that,
I don't see how taking
go ahead,
away human rights is democracy when we are in a republic where we have a constitution that is supposed to protect the right of every human being in the United States, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And how can I have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if I am chained and forced to carry a pregnancy that can risk my life, that will risk my health, that can risk my family's life against my will? So you tell me, how is that democracy?
Yeah, and the other part about that is, you know, he talked about, you're talking about the federal government overriding state laws. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about federal land owned by the United States government, which just happens to be in these states. The law of the land on federal land is federal law, not state law. So we wouldn't be changing anything. We wouldn't be affecting state law at all. It's just providing an opportunity for people who live in those states to actually have abortions in accordance with federal law. Federal law, by the way, trumps state law. It always has. Mm-hmm. So the federal constitution, the Constitution of the United States trumps any state constitution. Federal laws always trump state laws. It's always been like that. There's never been a situation where state law trumps federal law. So
yeah,
we're not,
again,
yeah.
Well, I mean, and also another one, how is a state law prohibiting people from crossing state lines to obtain health care democracy?
Yeah. Yeah. Are they doing that in Florida? I've heard them talking about that, but I wasn't sure.
Actually, okay. So the 15-week ban that was passed in Florida was supposed to go into effect on July 1st. But our state constitution here, Article 1, Section 23 of our state constitution guarantees a right to privacy for all Florida citizens. So the court struck that down. Now the state is appealing, and Ron DeSantis, who is a wannabe dictator, has said that, oh, that's being misinterpreted. It's not, doesn't mean you have a right to an abortion. But what is more private to me than my being pregnant? Why should the state have a right to know my private healthcare decisions?
I completely agree.
Right now we're safe, but we'll see.
All right. So there's another question that Logical, Plausible, Probable actually stated to us, which is this right here. So, well, first off, we live in a democratic republic. So are you against the Constitution, specifically the 9th and the 10th Amendments?
So first of all, I agree that we live in a democratic republic. I don't think I contradicted that. So I don't know why he's saying that we live in a democratic republic like I was contradicting that. I said it's not a democracy. There's a difference between a democracy. It's called a constitutional republic, but there's a difference between a democracy and a republic. And I agree that we live in a republic, not a true democracy. As far as whether or not I'm against the Constitution, no, I am pro-Constitution. So what specifically are you asking? What about the 9th Amendment? What about the 10th Amendment?
Good questions. Good questions. Then after he asked another question, which was, unless the federal is ruled unconstitutional and there is also the principle of nullification, do you deny this?
Is that a question?
I believe it was a question, but I don't know what he's trying to state based on that.
I don't understand. Rephrase your question. I think that the 10th Amendment, I'm going from memory here, I think it has to do with the federal government not basically not taking away states' rights. This is the classic argument that the South used for the Civil War, that, you know, states' rights, right? But and I think that that's what he's referring to, but I don't know how that applies in this case, because again, we're not talking about the suggestion that I made is not talking about taking states' rights away. It's talking about giving more rights to people in those states. So exactly. the people who are trying to take rights away are the legislators in those states.
Exactly.
It's the right that's trying to take rights away. I'm trying to give people more rights.
Agreed, or at least following where the popular vote goes, right? If the
I'm not understanding here, because the first question was about how is this democracy, and then you're like backtracking, going back to, well, this is a constitutional republic, like kind of like trying to pull that whole, we're not really a democracy, we're a republic.
Yeah, which one is it? Which one do you want?
You're really just trying to support the overturning of Roe v. Wade however you can because you like it, rather than that you're actually asking genuine questions about the Constitution.
Yeah. I would completely agree. With that. But logical, plausible, probable, if you got any more questions, fire them off and we'll definitely try to answer them to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as to what state you're in. Like, let us know what state you're in and what the law says in that state, and whether or not the majority of people in your state support the current law as it is. That if you want to talk about democracy, we can just start there.
Yeah, there's not one state where the majority actually supports the overturning of Roe v. Wade. There's not one, not even Texas. And actually, I don't know, there's different polls, Bryce, but the last poll I saw, it was like 72% of Americans, not 60%. It was 60% of Texans when that ban was passed, but it was, I mean, it's like the vast
there's multiple
majority.
polls out there, and so it depends. Usually when I refer to a poll, I try to be generous and go with the most conservative numbers that exist. And in the most conservative polls,
I've heard like 85 too. Yeah,
the majority is for abortion. The majority is pro-choice.
Every poll I've seen has the majority for pro-choice. It's like 60 to 85%. I've never seen a poll that's got less than that. And I'm sure that there are some churches and some organizations, pro-life organizations, that poll only people who agree with them that have numbers higher. But
so I don't know what I don't know what you're advocating for. Logical, plausible, probable. I don't know if you're saying that you believe in democracy, as in the majority of the people should get to decide what the laws are. Because if you believe in that, well, that's failing right now. Or if you're saying that no, the Constitution, the state Constitution is sacrosanct, and that matters more than the federal Constitution, because that's not anywhere. That's not anywhere in any Constitution that says that, right? And I don't know if you're saying that the Constitution, however it's written at the state level, should override the will of the majority of the people in that state. Like, what is your argument? What exactly are you arguing for? Who should have the final say? Is it the people? Is it the state constitution? Is it the federal constitution? What do you want? Is it the
very well articulated, Bryce. Thank you.
I don't know. And the reason I'm asking it this way is because I don't think he knows. Like, I think that a lot of people who argue in favor, who are anti-choice, they try to gravitate to whichever one gets them to anti-choice, whichever one they think gets them there. Whether it's democracy, whether it's the state constitution, whether it's, historical precedent or precedent of the Supreme Court, whichever one they think gets them to anti-choice, that's the one they're going to go with. So it's kind of kettle logic.
Absolutely. And I think the aspect, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I would rather, if he wants to, obviously, to elaborate on what he's trying to state, so that then after we can understand. And even as I wrote to him afterwards too, that I'll also pay a little more attention to the chat too, so that when somebody does ask you a question, it's actually relevant towards what we're actually speaking about than afterwards, because after sometimes it can be a little confusing of what the individual is actually trying to say based on after the point. So, so I did state that. However, logical, possible, and probable, probable. If you if you want please hit us up in the chat. Write what you're trying to state, and are you for state laws, federal laws, whatever the situation may be, so that we can understand your position a little better. And
let us know what state you're from too. Like
if that, yeah, also that's good too. But if you rather leave it so that you can be whatever, then it's perfectly fine. It's cool. Yeah. But anyway.
So can I say, I mean, in the meantime, something else that citizens can do besides voting, besides,
Sure.
well, on the voting end is, even if you vote for a candidate that you aren't in love with, you just think they're the best in this instance, hold their feet to the fire. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they made a promise, they made a campaign promise, hold their feet to the fire, call them out. If they have every single one of us writing to them, calling them out on social media, going to their town halls and calling them out all the time, they're not going to have a choice but to listen. So that's another thing. And the political side. On the personal side, there are organizations that are helping people right now in states where people have lost their rights to obtain abortion care. And there are local abortion funds. So if you go to the National Abortion Funds website, just Google that, you can find you can find your local abortion fund. You can donate to that. If you are in a state where you haven't lost your rights, you can donate to the National Abortion Funds, or you can find a state that you think really needs it and donate to them directly. You can also, Elevated Access is an Illinois-based charity, and they fly people to obtain abortions from states where they're not able to, obtain abortion care. They need money because obviously flying is pretty expensive. So those are also some things you can do if you're feeling kind of like, how do I help? What can I do? I know I'm originally from the Chicago area. I have friends in Illinois who are like, what can I do? What can I do? And so that's what they're doing. I have one friend I saw on Facebook that warmed my heart, was going to a charity fundraiser that was just for abortion funds. So people need that right now. It's I think I've mentioned this before when I talked to you guys. Like I feel like I'm pretty lucky. I do have the means to be able to get out of Florida if I were to fall into the position of needing an abortion, or if my daughter, I have a 23-year-old daughter, she was to fall into that position, I could get her out of Florida. I could even get her out of the United States if I had to. I have family in Canada, but my situation, a lot of people aren't in my situation. They don't have that ability. They can't, possibly get in certain areas of the state itself, let alone outside of the state. So donating to funds that help people get to this care is essential right now.
I completely agree. So I think logical, probable, whatever it is actually he's stating right here, dude, the people have ability to put laws up for vote. And
that's not what happened here in Florida.
Right.
Yeah. We didn't vote on 15-week abortion ban.
That's where he needs to say what state he's from, because this varies from state. This is not the same in every state. Some states do that.
And what's happening right now? Like people are, their lives are at risk right now. So you can get a law maybe in a few years from now that people might be able to vote on. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
But people, because of trigger laws, are right now at risk of death. I mean, we've had three generations of people right now who don't know what the world was like pre-Roe.
Good point. That's actually a really good point. Holy shit.
I'm more interested in his next comment there, because he says, and this is something I actually agree with you on this. If the majority of a state is in support of abortion, let them vote on it. I agree.
Really? Do you agree though? Because what if the majority of a state was in favor of slavery? Would that be okay?
No, I don't agree with that. But I mean, look, I'm kind of being a little bit facetious here, because the point is there is no state where the majority is against abortion. He's saying it as though there is. So Are you in a state, logical, plausible, probable, where the majority of the people are anti-choice?
Right.
And the answer is no. So that doesn't really work.
Okay. Now he's also saying the whole idea of persecution of actions in another state actually being able to be successfully prosecuted is a joke. That will never hold up in court if attempted.
How do we know
It's worked in Texas.
Yeah, they're doing it right now.
Yeah, that is what's going on in Texas right now. That was implemented in September. Before the SCOTUS made their ruling on overturning Roe v. Wade, they allowed it to stand. They could have put a stop to it until they heard the arguments and made their decision, but they didn't. And they have now ruled that is fine and dandy.
Yeah, so I wish that what you just said was true. Unfortunately, it's not.
No.
So that's the problem.
Right.
When you have a court with people like Clarence Thomas on it, who specifically said he's doing what he's doing to make the lives of liberals miserable. He's quoted, he's on the record as saying that. He wants to roll back people's rights. So if he's on the highest body of the court and that's what his mission is, then what you're saying is not accurate. It seems like a joke. He's a joke. More than half of them on the court are a joke, but unfortunately, they have power right now. So
yeah, like
you got a bunch of clowns with power.
I mean, Mitch McConnell violated the Constitution by blocking Obama's appointment of Merrick Garland to the court so that they could get Trump in office, so that they could get a pro-life Supreme Court justice. Supposedly, my understanding of the reason why Supreme Court justices were appointed for life was to keep politics out of their decisions. But clearly, that's not what's happening right now. And that is why they pushed so hard for Trump. Trump wanted to be president because he's an egomaniac, and he promised to them that he would appoint pro-life judges to the Supreme Court. And with Mitch McConnell illegally getting Gorsuch appointed to the Supreme Court over Merrick Garland, and then they were just lucky that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, they got an unprecedented, unelected 3 Supreme Court justices appointed by Trump, and it was a one-issue reason why they were appointed, only to revoke my rights, my daughter's rights, my friends' rights, my patients' rights. And I don't understand how anybody could support that or say that's a states' right issue.
Victoria has an interesting comment. I'm kind of curious as to what Shannon's opinion on it is, but that is simply incorrect. But I'm going to default to Shannon because you work in healthcare. I'm going to let you explain.
So she says, what's the safest way to end pregnancy? Birth.
No. Birth causes lots and lots of deaths around the world. Birth is extremely dangerous. I once had a patient, 29 years old, perfectly healthy person, no prior issues that should have made pregnancy dangerous for her. She was healthy, had even a healthy pregnancy considering overall, and then went into labor, hemorrhaged, almost died. They basically had to replace all of the blood that she had in her body because she hemorrhaged so bad. In order to save her life, they had to do a hysterectomy. She ended up the first 2 days of her life postpartum in the ICU. And this was a white, middle-class woman in a wealthy hospital. You want to talk about getting even more dangerous. Black women are 4 times as likely as white women in America to die during pregnancy and due to pregnancy complications. This is because pregnancy is incredibly dangerous. And unfortunately, racism still reigns here in the United States, even though a lot of people like to deny that. And Black women are less likely to be listened to with their concerns. But pregnancy causes death to a lot of people. Pregnancy causes blood clots, strokes, it causes hemorrhaging, it causes, you can give birth and then postpartum depression. Postpartum depression kills people too. I know somebody who died, never had a history of mental health, had a baby, her first child. She ended up so depressed, she killed herself. So no, birth is absolutely not safe. And it's not the safest way to end a pregnancy. An abortion, early abortion is incredibly safe.
We may have more context for that because Victoria, she elaborated. It looks like she's talking about the safety of the fetus and not the safety of the woman who's actually giving birth. So
okay, well, I give precedence to the person who's pregnant, the living, breathing person who is autonomous and has their own body and has their own life. I give precedence to them, but still, what you're writing there, babies are pulled out of the womb one limb at a time. No, that's not true. Cite your source.
And even if it was true, by the way, even if that was true, I don't give a shit. Because again, the priority is to the owner of the body, right?
You're right, but that's an appeal to emotion by using false propaganda that she probably got from some pro-life organization, because they don't have a problem lying as long as it achieves their goal.
Right. They're not babies. They're fetuses. So the use of the word baby, that's an appeal to emotion right there. Right?
It is.
So,
but call it a baby. Go ahead.
I don't care.
That baby still doesn't have a right to my body without my permission.
Okay.
Yeah. Most abortions, they are done before the third trimester, before there's even a developed brain there. So
yes,
there's no person there. By the way, this is something else that's problematic. A lot of these anti-choice people, I don't use the term pro-life, by the way. They're anti-choice.
Me neither.
Not pro-life. So a lot of the anti-choice people, they think that the relevant question is, when does life begin? They think that life begins at conception, which I don't even think conception is a meaningful term, because it means a bunch of different things. Like, what does conception mean? Conception means fertilization. Conception means pregnancy. They're two different things. So they don't even know what they're saying when they say life begins at conception. But I don't care when life begins. I care when personhood begins. And personhood can't begin before, at the very earliest, the third trimester, because all of the attributes of personhood are the result of the frontal lobe and the cerebral cortex, which don't begin developing until so many weeks into pregnancy, right? So there's no person there. So that's the relevant thing.
Right.
And that's when, but there's no one advocating for late term abortions either.
Absolutely. And now
those 700 lives matter. And then we can talk about 700 women per year die in childbirth. That's a lot of people. And if one of those 700 people was your mother, you'd care about it. Also, pregnancy can cause irreparable damage. Hence the patient I was telling you about, who now has no uterus for the rest of her life. She is glad she had that baby, but nobody should undergo that kind of a risk to their life without their enthusiastic, informed consent.
Yeah, I don't understand
what sciatica pain from my first pregnancy. I had sciatica pain so badly that I couldn't walk for part of my pregnancy. There's people who are put on bed rest for 4 months in order to sustain a pregnancy. These are things that people shouldn't have to do without their consent for a potential life. When these people who need to make a living, they have a livelihood, they have children of their own, are ready to watch, they have families, they have a life. A potential life does not trump the life of the person who is incubating that life, who is using their resources. Once you are pregnant, once you have a child, actually a full-term pregnancy, and actually either push a baby out of your vagina or have one cut out of you with a C-section, your body is never the same again. Some people tolerate it better than others, but many, many people don't tolerate pregnancy very well at all, or labor or delivery.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I'm not
death isn't the only
fear-mongering.
problem.
I'm not fear-mongering because it's my right to my body.
It's not fear mongering because you just posted a stat that let's just take that at face value that 700 people die a year from giving birth. Do 700 people not matter? 700 times 49, which is the number of years that Roe v Wade has been in place, equals 34,300 people have died, apparently. So it's more than 700 in that time span. But the point is, do they not matter? And also, as Shannon was saying, death is only one adverse effect of being pregnant. There's a lot of other things that people who are raped shouldn't have to have a baby by their rapist. Are you against abortion in cases of rape or incest? That's how is that not harmful to the person that has to give birth? Do you not care about whether they're harmed? Like, I don't understand what argument you're making. These are legitimate things that happen. And are you saying that it doesn't matter because it's only 700 people who die? Like,
also,
what's the argument there?
I'm sorry, Bryce, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Also, many people do get abortions because their life is at risk. They have high-risk pregnancies, and they get abortions for that reason. We ban abortion. That 700 number is going to go up.
Right. And also, they talk about because a lot of these laws I'm hearing, they're trying to ban abortion even in the cases where the woman's life is at risk. There are stipulations in some of these states, I can't remember which ones, that say that the only time of abortion is permissible is if the mother's life is at risk. But what does that mean? What does the risk have to be? Is it
that's true. Like,
death? Is it a 50% risk? Is it a 32% risk? Like, what are they called? There's always a risk of death. So, like, what's the threshold?
Always. Right. Exactly. Like you were saying about, okay, when do you define conception? Now we're going, well, when do you define a person's life being at risk? Is a person having a history of postpartum depression and suicide attempts, is that going to be considered a risk to their life? Like you said, how big of a risk? And are you going to make this person jump through hoops and spend more money and more of their time to go and have to get 2 doctors? Because this is what some states are doing. You have to get 2 doctors to sign off and say that yes, your life is at risk. Why don't we just trust the pregnant person and their healthcare provider to decide whether this individual should be able to get an abortion?
I'm going to answer one more question from Logical, Plausible, Probable, because he's talking about brain development as if he knows what he's talking about. So I think he's also asking to come on. I don't know. It's your show, Josh. I don't know if you want to.
Because I was actually going to state that. Actually, I was going to write it inside the comment section, but it keeps moving my camera, so it's bothering individuals in the comment section. So I understand. But if you guys want to stay on for an after party, if you want, I'm not saying you have to, but if you want and you want to have a discussion with Logical,
I can do maybe 20 minutes more.
But
I won't be able to. I'm sorry. I'm on the East Coast, so it's 11 o'clock at night. It's already past my bedtime, and I have 2 children because parenting is a demanding job, and I have 2 little ones who are going to be up tomorrow at like 6 in the morning. I would love to, but I am absolutely 100% willing to come on again, or to I'm Nullifidian Mom on Twitter. If you want to get in touch with me that way, I am more than happy to open a Twitter space at a time when I'm more available, and I will gladly talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was glad to be on at the same time as you, Shannon. I appreciate your thoughts. And thank you, by the way,
thanks
for calling me out on that slavery example, because, at the end of the day, we have amendments in the Constitution for a reason, and it's so that the majority can't trump the will of the minority, and vice versa. And there are certain things just from a moral standpoint that should be codified in law, irrespective of how the majority feels. I think the only point I was trying to make using his example was that there are no states where the majority is anti-choice. So
yeah, I understood that, especially
like
once you explained that
Yeah.
made more sense. Like, okay, sure, if
Yeah.
you're never going to have it, but you're going to have maybe times where the majority of people support some sort of abortion restrictions, but not a total ban.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. And
But thank you. Yeah.
And I will answer your question logical after I guess when we do the after party.
Yeah, when we do the after party, we'll definitely let you on. And then, so actually hit me up on Twitter, Logical. And if you do that, I'll send you a link. And after you can come on, we can have a discussion. It'll only be around 20 minutes because I got stuff to do tomorrow plus work. And Bryce has his own thing that he needs to do tomorrow. So just for me, we'll only have a 20-minute discussion. What I do want is a respectful discussion. If there is any over talking, then I'm going to end it. Okay.
Fair enough.
But besides that, we're going to have a good conversation. We're going to see the 2 points. So anyways, guys, I'm going to have to sign off right now. Any last remarks, Shannon? Any last remarks?
Vote. And follow Women's Voices of Southwest Florida. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just, if you want to follow our work and see what we're doing.
Sure. Absolutely. I'll put it even inside the description below in order for people to go in and want to check it out, if anything. So awesome.
Great. Thank you very much.
No worries. Anytime. Bryce, last words?
Sir. Vote for progressives who will actually protect your rights and not people who are going to take your rights away or not fight for your rights.
Absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful statements from both of you. Thank you both for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you on. And literally, I would love to have you on again because this was very educational for me. This was very educational for the individuals who are actually listening inside the comments section. And I think that so much people could get a lot of information from this actual video later on. So even when we're off live, people will come and check this out and they'll even see and hear what we're discussing. So again, thank you so much for giving this information out to people so that they can mull over it and act in a way that would be beneficial for their rights and their laws and so on and so forth. So again, thank you both for coming on. I'm your host, Josh the Archon, and let's make this enlightenment together. Have a great night and see you next weekend. Where is my outro? Here we go.